Recording is on.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Ted, welcome. Welcome to the call. I'm looking forward to hearing from you about your idea, why protest Congress instead of run for Congress instead. So one of our previous speakers, Gabriel Astuni, suggested the same thing about 8, 10 months ago, maybe, along with taking a bunch of other actions as well, getting involved and putting the leadership on notice. So Ted, over to you. We want to learn about the actions you're taking, and hopefully that will inspire more people to take similar actions.
Yes, thank you, Salman. And I did not know about that previous presentation. I joined this group about 6 or 7 months ago, soon after I started the LinkedIn public group, Worldwide Palestine Solidarity. It has now, the name has been updated to Worldwide Humanitarian Solidarity. And I think that's consistent with a lot of people's feelings, including the Palestinians, that Gaza and historic Palestine is a compass for all of humanity as far as, how we deal with each other and how we look to a healthier and more sustainable future. That group, to my astonishment, surprise, and blessing, has been growing by about 1,000 people per month since March of 2025. Over the last month, the people who have been joining has been plateauing. It's only growing by about 200 a month this last month, and that's okay. And that's maybe a good time for me to introduce this topic to all the people that are in that LinkedIn network. And as Salman introduced, my concept is why protest Congress, run for Congress instead. My clear understanding, my clear impression from 14, 15 years of being a humanitarian activist is that the members of Congress or high profile individuals, they have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in their network. And it's hard for any single individual's message to break through unless you already have that contact with that individual. My own personal experience has been that letter writing has been unsatisfactory. It's too easy for the letter to be arrive at the wrong person, for it not to be understood, for the particulars of your correspondence to be glossed over. Of course, that doesn't mean that there are, and there have been, some letter writing campaigns that have been very successful, or other forms of protest that have been very successful. And certainly all the progress that the worldwide community that is empathizing and supporting Palestinians has made a lot of progress, has made a lot of noise, has made a lot of points to break through the consciousness of humanity. And I think we all witnessed that, at the UN meeting of this week, where most, if not all, the world leaders were commenting on it. I note that in my country, the United States of America, in the last presidential election, the topic of Gaza was not discussed at all. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about this campaign of mine. I decided to run for Congress myself in Cape Love, North Carolina, in June of 2025. And I just felt that the time was right for me, and my accumulated activism on the topic needed some additional, just get to the next level. And I felt in my head, in my heart, and in my gut that Congress needed to be put on notice. And it's very simple to determine whether a individual who's elected to national office, where they stand on these issues. You just need to look at their voting record. And individuals, members of the House of Representatives, that are voting to use U.S. taxpayer funds and send them to a country that's committing genocide is unacceptable. Members of the House of Representatives in the United States that are voting to send weapons to any country that's committing genocide or war crimes is unacceptable. These laws are on the books. They're on the books in the United States of America. They're on the books throughout the world. And it all traces back to the results from the Great Patriotic War, the Second World War, that concluded 80 years ago. And our grandparents, great-grandparents, gave us an incredible gift, which was these laws to clearly delineate what is absolutely unacceptable. So I'll transition at this point to show you some of the material that I put together. But the reason for me making this presentation to this group, for it to be recorded and hopefully shared by members of this group, is that others can take that same initiative. Now, this may not be for every single person. Maybe there'll be dozens or hundreds or conceivably thousands of people around the country or around the world that might capture the same concept and run for office in their country of birth or their country of choice, where they're currently residing and where they're a citizen. So over these last 3 months, I've fleshed out what I have done and what I am comfortable with and what I can offer as suggestions to others. So I will share my screen at this point and go to actually my LinkedIn account. So here is my LinkedIn account. I'm assuming that everything is coming through okay. I am a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. I served for 4 years at the Air Force Academy and 20 years as a commissioned officer and retired honorably. I further continued service to my country as a defense contractor for short periods. And so for a total of about 3 decades, I was working in the field of acquisition, defense acquisition, and 2 of those decades was in the field of foreign military sales. Fortunately, I can say I was never involved in activities that had to do with war crimes or genocide. Nevertheless, I was always aware and well trained by the U.S. government in avoiding committing crimes through my work. I mentioned that I'm a candidate for Congress, and a very important point that I want to point out here is no donations are sought nor accepted. This is not a money-making scheme on my part. This is what it is. It's a way to make Congress aware of their role, because what I found is that most Congress members are taking the bribes, the legal bribes from the lobbyists, and they believe that there's no consequences. There are consequences, and we'll get into this. So I've had close to 1,000 posts in this group, in this worldwide humanitarian solidarity group, and only about 10, 15, or 20 have been on this topic. But again, this is the focus and the effort that I want to highlight with this meeting. So I have this post, and it's included in my featured post right here in my LinkedIn profile, and it starts with a clip from the film Spartacus. I believe this is a 1960 film starring Kirk Douglas. It's a very moving film for me and for others, especially this scene. And the reason I bring this up is so that the viewer of the video or the participants in this meeting can have access to it. But also under this post, I have 6 of the, let's say, campaign flyers or campaign slogans that I've used over the last few months. And I'll go through these, let's say, in chronological order. So this was the original campaign flyer that I put out. And this is as far as I went and as aggressive as I was in identifying what the problem was and what I would like for my fellow citizens, fellow humans, people in Washington to realize. It's not well advertised, educated to the public by either our government or the media, but there are laws in the books prohibiting war crimes and genocide. And really, one of my thoughts when I originally put together this campaign flyer was what's here at the bottom. Just educate the public in what's going on. I identify myself at the top. I identify that I'm running for Congress in 2026. So now we're in the middle, beginning of spring 2025. It's not too early to start thinking in these terms. Now, as I said, this is the most aggressive that I've been in any of my campaign flyers, and it has stood the test of time. No one has said that I couldn't use this campaign flyer. No one has said that there's anything, let's say, illegal or incorrect about it. But being as aggressive and seeking the death sentence for a congressman, which is in accordance with the law. If you read the law says war crimes that result in death are punishable by death. And this is what I want to, include as a point of reference or education especially for the people in Washington. However, it turns off a lot of people. We're in a state where we're doing a lot of protesting, and the activism, taking action, is just starting to bubble to the surface. There's a lot of people that have been doing a lot of action, but I think more of the people that have been doing protests are going to start doing are going to start taking action in various ways. And this is only one of dozens, hundreds, or thousands of actions that can be taken. So from that first flyer, which I had, and I'm trying to load, I moved on to a second flyer. It's taking a little bit of time to load here sometimes. And so I'll describe it. It's unfortunate.
Maybe try hitting refresh. Just
yeah, let's.
It's a provocative flyer, but I remember you mentioned that like your goal is to not get the seat in Congress, but to put Congress on notice. You are being realistic about you're not actually going to get a seat in the Congress, right? And but at least this way you will get some significant attention.
Well, I'm running, and I'm running with integrity. So if elected, I would definitely serve. But the environment is not ideal for someone like myself. I'm a person with a lot of ideas, but not necessarily a huge amount of charisma. Charisma is a gift of the divine. And so I recognize this. I recognize that I might individually get 1% of the vote. But rather than putting all my effort in getting from 0.5% of the vote to 1% of the vote, why not put my effort into inviting 50, 100, 500 people into running and having the position as candidates for national office in the United States or in other parts of the world. If you're in a European country, you might want to run for the national legislator in your country. And that has different implications depending on what country that you're on. So I will, again, try to load another one of the campaign flyers that I have. Hopefully the gremlins will be a little bit friendlier. Yeah, so here it is, and I'll attempt to share it. So this is actually a follow-on to the other campaign flyer that I put together, and I actually did this while I was traveling, and I did this in direct response to a few people, but very conscientious and respectful people who objected to the harsh and aggressive stance that I took in my initial campaign flyer. And in this one, we're including at the bottom, we've only changed it to seek the maximum penalty. And in addition to Title 10 U.S. Code Section, Title 18 U.S. Code Section 2441 War Crimes, I've included Section 1091 Genocide. And also I looked up and included Title 10 U.S. Code Section 918, Article 118 Murder. And the reason that I included that one is I was doing some research, and I researched the My Lai massacre from the Vietnam War. And I found out how the officer that was in charge and led that massacre, how he was held accountable. And the way he was held accountable was under UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 118, premeditated murder. And it may be a stretch to put the premeditated murder onto, let's say, a wide swath of people in Washington, but the criminality is just off the charts. And there's, a washing of hands and a avoidance of responsibility widespread among those who are our national representatives, who are, in our name, taking actions that are reprehensible to the majority of the population. There are other postings, and I'll briefly point to those that are that I place in my featured section of my LinkedIn profile. And I will also say that I'm most likely a write-in candidate. Whereas if there was an individual with a higher profile and more of a following locally, they might be able to run as an independent, get drafted by one or the other of the political parties where they exist. What I would like to stress and to emphasize is this is a way to ensure that Gaza is a topic in any upcoming election. That's in my country and worldwide. I think I mentioned that I did not hear it discussed in the last presidential election in the United States of America. It just wasn't discussed. And that's a shame for our country. It's a shame that we're going to have to live with, but we can make a difference. And whether you're a person with just a few contacts or you have a wide range of contacts, and you're willing to take this additional step, it's a way to force the issue. And for myself, I'm not necessarily campaigning in a traditional way where I have 20 different websites and 20 different social media accounts. But my approach has been, when there's an event, especially an event between candidates, I might not be invited to participate in the stage, but I might be outside the venue when the people are filtering in and giving them my flyers, physically handing them my flyers, to make them understand that this is a topic that they can address in the meeting, that there are candidates and there are conscientious people who see a different trajectory for our country, for our world. Here, I'll take this opportunity to share. Let's see. So again, I'll leave it to the individuals to look at these posts individually. This is a post or a flyer that I put out about 3 weeks ago, I think, or maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was the concept, the birthing of the concept that anyone and everyone can take the time to look at their representative's voting record, and that's how you can tell whether or not they're complicit in what's happening in Gaza and Palestine, or if they're let's say not getting themselves implicated in this mess, and that their position should be respected. So it's the majority of the Congress that has been voting in this manner, and not necessarily the entire Congress. So you have to be careful. And I can also say, for those representatives that are voting in a conscientious manner, they should be supported. Or candidates that are running on maybe multiple issues, but they've got the Gaza question right, they can be supported. And here is, let's see, this one was from 4 days ago, when I announced this, that I was going to be the featured speaker of this presentation, of this week's presentation. And I've also added these are conceptual, concept flyers. I see a huge connection between lack of accountability in Washington on a wide range of topics, not only Gaza. Of course, Gaza is the most egregious, the most desiring of correction and attention immediately. But okay, here we have it. You can read it for yourself. I am disgusted with the lack of accountability for the widespread rape of women and children. And that's what's going on with Epstein. The people of this country that voted for Trump, that was part of his promises, to release the Epstein list. It was promised from the president and the vice president. And upon getting elected, they do a bait and switch, and they claim that it's a hoax and that there'll be no accountability. It just shows how bad, how inauthentic our politicians are and have become, and especially on these issues. I've received some comments from people that are, let's say, international, that don't understand the connection or why I would include a domestic issue with this international issue. Again, I'm not a political expert, but one of the few things I've heard often is that all politics in the United States are local and domestic. This is a real issue. These are just suggestions. I don't want to spend too much time promoting myself, doing self-aggrandizement. I think that our country and our world is at a very tenuous, delicate spot, and that we really need to, everyone on the planet really needs to put some thought into what kind of world we want to build. For those who are interested in knowing more about my background or hearing more about me talking, in that same featured section of my LinkedIn profile, there's an interview I did about 3 months ago. It's an hour interview, and I'm very comfortable and satisfied with that. And I can direct you to that. And it goes into some of my background and some of my other activities, which were included in the email that Solomon sent out. So I've actually been talking for about 20 minutes, and I'd like to open it up to some questions and answers. I'll turn it back to Salman.